Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. All right, we are back here in Murray, Calloway County, Kentucky, and we're going to talk with personal injury attorney Jeff Roberts about hit and run accidents. Jeff, welcome back.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Buddy, I'm doing great. I love talking about this because I always learn things from you. I mean, you've been doing this for almost 32 years now. There's been a lot of situations you've been involved with, and hit and run accidents, unfortunately, are a little bit more complicated than other things because you don't know who the other person was. So I'm going to be interested in watching you kind of peel this back and explain what we need to do if we're ever in that kind of a situation.
Yes. Over my 32 years of practicing, I've unfortunately been involved in representing several people who have been involved in hit and run collisions, and they do have their own unique circumstances when that occurs. And so it is an interesting topic, and those cases can be challenging when you pursue those.
And so we're going to go through a list of issues and maybe some tips that you might want to take note of. And by all means, if you can, share this out with some of your family and friends. I mean, these are accidents that, you never plan for these kind of things, but when they happen, it'd be good if you've got the information because you're going to talk about a lot of the stuff that you want to take care of at the scene when this happens.
Correct.
So let's jump in and talk about, okay, so you're just been in a collision and now you're thinking about that fleeing vehicle. What should you be doing?
First thing that you should not do is attempt to follow the vehicle. That could be extremely dangerous to do. So do not attempt to follow the vehicle. What you should do, though, is if you can see the license plate, get the license plate number for the vehicle. If you cannot see the license plate, then do your best to get the color, the make, and the model of the vehicle. When an accident happens, it's kind of everything's running full speed, adrenaline's pumping, etc. But try to make note of what part of their vehicle hit your vehicle as well, so the police know where to look for damage on a vehicle from that standpoint. But that's as far as the other vehicle. If they flee, let them flee. Try to get some information so to help the police try to track that vehicle down. License plate's the best thing if you can get the license plate. If you can't get the license plate, then get color, make, and model and any other identifying information. If you see the driver and you can describe who that was, that's helpful as well.
So ideally, I mean, if you're okay medically, if you've got your cell phone handy, start taking pictures, start maybe running some video because that
comes in later. If you can do that then, but a lot of times the vehicle's going to be gone before you get the chance to do that. I would make sure that you try to get that license plate number and get that information first, because while you're trying to get your cell phone out, get the camera up and all of that, they may be completely gone, and then you've missed your chance to see the license plate number or any other identifying information.
That makes a lot of sense. So I guess the next thing is to check on yourself and your passengers, just making sure everybody's okay.
Exactly. Check on yourself, your passengers, kind of just do a once-over on your own body to see how you are. Are you bleeding? Are you hurting anywhere? And then if there's passengers in your vehicle, ask them the exact same, those questions. Say, is everybody okay? Find out if anybody is injured from that standpoint, because you need to know that information. Once you determine that, then you go to what I would kind of call taking some safety precautions at that point in time. Regardless of where your vehicle is, even if you're off the roadway and not in danger of being hit by another vehicle, go ahead and put on your blinkers or your flashers. Turn your flashers on. And frankly, even if it's daytime, I would turn my headlights on because that makes it a lot easier for other vehicles to spot you. If you're in the roadway, you definitely need to do both of those. Turn your flashers on, turn the headlights on so other vehicles can spot you. Kind of look at where your vehicle is if you're capable of doing so to see if it is in the zone of danger of being hit by other cars. If your wreck was right over the crest of a hill and you're still in that roadway where the next car coming over that hill is not going to have time to avoid you, or something. If you're in a dangerous situation where your car is, if it is movable, try to get it off the roadway and get it into a safer location. And there's different schools of thought on whether you should stay in your vehicle or should get out of your vehicle. Frankly, that depends on the situation you're in. I don't think you can give a one answer that's going to address all of those situations, because sometimes if you're on an interstate where traffic is going at a high rate of speed and it's icy conditions out or something of that nature, getting out and sitting on the guardrail waiting for police to arrive may put you in more danger. But also sitting in the disabled vehicle in a lane of travel could put you in more danger. So that's going to be on the facts of your specific case on what you should do from that perspective if you to protect yourself. But take those steps from there, and then call 911 and tell them you need a police officer to come out because there's been a hit and run accident. Give the dispatcher the information about the car at that point so that the police can already start looking for that vehicle at that point in time. But also if anybody is injured, let them know you need an ambulance so they can get an ambulance coming out to the scene to take care of anybody that's injured in the vehicle as well from that perspective. So do all of those steps to kind of protect yourself there at the scene and to get help out to you as quickly as you can.
Well, and then I guess it kind of shifts. Assuming everybody's okay, it comes down to the evidence, because there may be some evidence that's in the roadway or around you. What should you do with that, or what shouldn't you do with that?
Don't move the evidence. Don't if there are debris from the vehicles where they collided on the roadway, leave it on the roadway, and let the police deal with moving that. But do take photos. If there's skid marks, debris, anything like that, take photos. Take photos of the debris, of the skid marks. Take photos, if you're able to get out and all, take photos of the damage to your vehicle right there on the scene as well. And basically kind of start gathering the evidence from that. Don't gather it up, but you're preserving the evidence, I should say. Yeah. Documenting the evidence. That's a good, best word for it. Document the evidence, but you don't want to move it because where things are in the roadway can help the police and accident reconstructionists determine where the vehicles were at the time of collision. So you want to leave everything where it's at, but document it with photos from there. When the police show up, they will document everything, or should document everything as well from that standpoint. And if it's one that they think accident reconstructionist is, they will take care of all of that. The police will there. Now, a lot of times police don't think there's a need for an accident reconstructionist, and we have to hire one later, and they go by gouge marks and photos from where the damage was. So that's all very important for them to have.
There might also be witnesses who were there at the time of the accident.
Exactly. Right? A lot of times after a collision, witnesses will come up that saw the accident or just come up on the accident after the collision occurred to check on people, and if they do that, then get their phone number, name and number of any witnesses if they saw the accident or if they saw the vehicle fleeing. Make sure you get all of that information from them there. And I've come up on accidents before, actually a hit and run accident where I was behind the car and a car turned in front of them and they hit the trailer and the car kept on going. And I stopped, talked to the folks there. When the police showed up, I had already, told the folks who I was. From that, I did not give them a business card because I didn't want them thinking that I was trying to solicit business at the scene of a collision. But I told them who I was. Police showed up, told the police that I was a witness, and they said, okay, and told me to go on, and never got my name or phone number. Police didn't get it, so it did not show up on the accident report. So the police should get that in 90% of the time, 95% of the time they will get that, but don't assume they're going to. If they come up to you get that information. And some witnesses may not stay there. If they find out, okay, nobody's needing immediate medical help, they may say, well, I need to go get on to where I'm going and take off before the police get there, or shortly after police get there, but before their names are taken by the police. So get their names and phone numbers if you can from that. And now you have we live in a different situation now than we did when I started practicing. So if you're in a residential area and people who live nearby come out to the scene, they may not have seen the accident, but a lot of people now have surveillance cameras outside or a Ring doorbell type camera on their home that may have picked up either the collision, or if it didn't pick up the collision, it may have picked up the vehicle going that hit you going one direction or another, that you can potentially get the license plate off of from that standpoint. So if somebody, if you're in a residential area and people come from the houses, ask them, do you happen to have any type of surveillance cameras, video cameras that might show the roadway, so we can find out who it was that left, to see if we can track that vehicle down. Or if you're in front of a business, ask the business. If people come out from the business and say, do y'all have surveillance cameras that show this? There's been, I've had cases where I've used, it wasn't a hit and run, but the accident was caught on a surveillance of a convenience store, because it was right at the intersection where the convenience store was located, and they were trying to put fault off on my client. And that surveillance video carried the day that my client didn't do anything wrong, that it was purely 100% the fault of their client or their insured in that situation. So video from can be very, very valuable in these cases. So ask, do you have video? So preserve that video so that the police and I can have that later on.
That makes a lot of sense. And the next topic is something that I think a lot of people, some are more likely to do this than others, but I'd really like your opinion on, should I seek medical attention if I've been in a collision?
You will have some attorneys that will say, even if you're not hurting, go to the doctor, go seek medical treatment for the injury. I do not hold to that viewpoint. From my standpoint, if you're not hurting, then I wouldn't go seek medical treatment at that point in time. Because frankly, what are you going to do? Go in there and say, "Well, it's just an accident. I don't hurt at all." But I heard Attorney Jeff Roberts say I needed to see a doctor after this, and then that doesn't help anybody from that standpoint. And frequently, a lot of times the problems don't develop the day of. They do develop over time. When you're involved in a collision, your adrenaline is pumping. And you may not realize at the scene that you are hurt. If the officer asks you, are you hurt? And they will ask you that, are you hurt? Best answer there is, I can't, I don't think I am, but I don't know, or something of that nature, because you don't really know at that point in time. But later on that evening, after the adrenaline's out of your system, or the next day or 2 days or a week later, you may start feeling the pain developing at that point in time. And that is common, that's normal, that's understandable. Nearly every doctor I've ever talked to will say that is normal, and that doesn't mean that it didn't occur from the wreck. In fact, that's what I would expect to see, is it develops slowly over time after the wreck. So that doesn't hurt the case. That's when you need to seek medical treatment, though. When you first start feeling it, then seek the medical treatment. Let the doctor know, I was in a wreck yesterday or 2 days ago or whenever the wreck was, and I've started to experience pain now. It's kind of gradually coming on, and I'm having pain. But you do need, if you're having any pain from the wreck, seek medical treatment, get that treated. A lot of people will say, well, I don't have the money for medical bills. And I understand that. In Kentucky, if you're injured in a wreck, then the vehicle you're in is liable for the first $10,000 of medical and/or lost wages. So, and there's no copays or deductibles on that. It's called no fault or PIP benefits. We've talked about that several times. I know Jim will put a link in the show notes to those prior episodes if you want to go learn more about that. But if you seek medical treatment, that should cover without any copays or deductibles. From that standpoint, if you don't have the ability to pay the copays and the deductibles, so you don't have to worry about that. And if you go and they say, look, we want to build health insurance, you got to pay the copays, they will reimburse you what you paid out of copay. So you don't have to worry about that aspect of that. So seek that medical treatment. Let them know about the injury. Obviously, you're hurting right there on the scene. Go right then. Go to the emergency room. Go to urgent care. Let the police officer know you're going to the emergency room or urgent care. If it's the next day, if you start having problems that night and you decide you're going to go, if you start hurting that night, you decide you're going to go the next day room. If you don't decide you're going to go the next day, if you're hurting that night, call the police station up the next day and say, look, I was in this wreck. I told the officer I wasn't hurting then. I just want him to know that it's after I got home and settled down, I did start hurting. So I do have neck pain or shoulder pain or wherever the pain is. I do have that. So that should then show back up in the police report, because it usually takes them a couple of days to get the police report. And they should say, didn't complain at the scene, but called the next day and said they were hurting or something of that nature. So it does show up in the police report at that point in time.
And it's okay that it's after the fact.
It's okay that it's after the fact, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And friends, in episode 59 of this podcast, Jeff talked about various types of insurance. And so some of that will be covered. And that'll actually probably lead us into the next topic, which is you should contact your insurance carrier.
Exactly. Yes, you should contact your insurance carrier after the collision as well. Let them know that you've been involved in the collision, that the other driver left the scene of the collision. The fact that the other driver left the scene does not mean that you don't have a potential claim. We'll talk about that a little bit further, but your insurance needs to know that first off to get the no fault or the PIP claim started for you so that your medical bills will be taken care of. From there, nearly every auto insurance contract I've read has a provision in it that says that you have to timely notify them of an accident. So you've got to let them know that.
And just to clarify, that PIP insurance, that PIP coverage, actually applies to you and any passengers.
Yes,
individually, right?
Yeah, everybody in the vehicle has 10,000 of PIP coverage. It's not limited on 10,000 divided by 4. If there's 4 people, each individual has 10,000. That's different than the other coverages that you have in motor vehicle coverage, but that's the way that applies on the PIP. From there, and accessing your PIP coverage should not raise your insurance rates. That's no fault coverage, so it should not raise the rates whatsoever from that. If you have collision coverage, the fact that the other driver left the scene, obviously if they never track down that other driver, you've got to get your vehicle repaired and fixed. And if you got collision coverage, that will take care of that. But obviously your insurance has to know that. They'll have to come out and do their estimates on the damage to your vehicle, and then you can get your vehicle repaired. Hopefully you got rental car coverage and you can use a rental car during that period of time while your vehicle is being repaired. If they do track down the other driver eventually, if you can track that person down and they have insurance and we can document they were at fault, that they caused this accident, they left the scene, but this was the vehicle involved, then we can access that insurance on the vehicle that's there. And frankly, that applies even if you can't document exactly who was driving the vehicle, because the vehicle is going to be for that insurance for that vehicle and not necessarily the driver of that vehicle. And I've had situations where there was a hit and run. We were able to finally track down the vehicle. From there, couldn't say really who was driving. I think the insurance company knew. They didn't want to disclose who was driving because of potential criminal charges against the driver for leaving the scene of an accident from that standpoint. But they had no problems paying us the damages that my client had suffered in that collision, despite the fact that I couldn't say this person or this person was actually the one driving the vehicle. from that standpoint. So you can have those situations where you actually are able to eventually track down the driver of the vehicle and then access their insurance. And frankly, once you track it down and know who the insurance company for the vehicle that was driving, it's just like from the insurance part of the claim, it's going to be very similar to as though they stayed at the accident site to some extent. At that point, you would pursue the liability claim against them. Now, frankly, if you have to go to a jury, I would want the jury to make sure they knew they left the scene. And when they leave the scene, it makes it much more difficult for the insurance company to argue, my guy wasn't at fault in causing this wreck. It was Jeff's client, not the insurance company's insured, that was at fault in causing the wreck because their person left the scene. So they're going to have a hard time saying that at that point in time because the person left the scene for a reason as a general rule. And then but if you can't track down that other insurance, that car, if it's never tracked down, then in Kentucky, if you're insured in Kentucky, you have coverage on your vehicle that will help protect you. It's called uninsured motorist coverage, and it's mandatory coverage in Kentucky. Like the PIP coverage is mandatory coverage, uninsured motorist coverage is mandatory coverage. And you can go against your own insurance for the coverage under underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage. And basically, your insurance company kind of acts like the liability insurance company at that point in time. Now, if at some point in time they track down who it is, then and your insurance has already paid uninsured motorist coverage to you, then they can go back against that other company's insurance to get that money that they paid to you from that standpoint and get that money back from there. And again, that is coverage that should not raise your rates because you weren't the one at fault in causing the accident. So accessing that uninsured motorist should not affect your rates.
Well, and I know a lot of people are always worried about that. Well, if I report this or pursue it, I'm just going to hurt myself in the long run. But technically, because you're paying for that, it's a contract you have with your insurance company. So, it's just a contractual obligation. They can't punish you for that.
Exactly. It's a contractual obligation, and there's some regulations in Kentucky that talk about when they can and can't, what accidents they can and can't use, and coverage they can and can't use to raise your rates from that standpoint. Now, are your rates going to go up? Probably, because rates go up just nearly every time you renew your coverage, but the accident should not be a factor in raising those rates and is not generally a factor unless you're at fault. Now, if you're at fault in causing an accident, then
Different story.
That's a different story. Then that is going to cause your rates to go up just because you were the one at fault. But if you're using coverage like PIP coverage, uninsured motorist, or underinsured motorist coverage, that does not affect your rates. Should not affect your rates.
And that's good news, and that's another benefit of
yes.
having insurance here in Kentucky.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, just a few minutes ago, we talked about passengers being covered by the PIP insurance, the no-fault insurance. If you want, I'm going to refer you back to episode 28, where we specifically talked about the rights of passengers in a car wreck. So again, in the show notes, I'm going to put links to each one of these episodes that we've mentioned during the conversation here. But there is a specific episode that we did. So again, if you're a passenger and the car you're in was involved in a hit and run accident, this will give you some more information. So you don't just have to be the driver; you have rights as a passenger as well.
And that brings up from the uninsured motorist aspect. If you're a passenger in the vehicle, you have access to the uninsured motorist coverage for that vehicle, and potentially, if you have other vehicles that are covered under, you may potentially be able to recover under those. A lot of those say it's got to be this vehicle that you get the uninsured. We'd have to read the policy to determine that, but there's that potential that needs to be explored for sure from that standpoint. So if you're involved in these type of collisions, you need to explore all the avenues. Hopefully, police will be able to find the at fault or the vehicle that left the scene of the collision, and if they aren't able to find that vehicle, then there's still other avenues that we can pursue to make sure that the person gets the proper compensation for their injuries from that standpoint. And that brings up one thing that I think we've talked about before is about your insurance coverage, and that's something people need to look at periodically to see where their coverage is. When when I first purchased automobile insurance on my own, my financial situation is substantially different than what it is now, and my coverages are substantially less than what they are now. Over time, I have increased my coverages from that standpoint, and that's something that you need to look at, because if you have quote unquote full coverage, that's just talking about the different types of coverage you have, not the limits that you have. And so if you only have 25,000 of liability and 25,000 of UM coverage, that's all that's going to pay you if you're involved in a hit and run accident. Or if you're involved in an accident where the other driver is uninsured, but it's their fault, you're going to be limited there. So you need to look at what your coverages are, and make sure you're purchasing adequate coverage to protect yourself and your family.
That makes a lot of sense. I was just looking at some of the previous episodes that we've done here, and again, that episode 59 deals with, what are the various types of coverages, what should you consider, and how do they actually work.
Yeah, and I think we discussed the policy limits and how those interact with that in that episode.
Yeah, I believe so. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is that we did talk in episode 58 about accidents involving pedestrians or bicyclists, and a lot of times this will be a hit and run where driver didn't see you, got hit, panicked, left the scene. So again, you have some rights there. So Jeff did do a full-on episode dealing with pedestrian and bicycle accidents back in episode 58, which once again will be in the show notes for you to make it really, really easy.
Yes.
So I've done this. I've kind of gone out. I've tried to identify the fleeing vehicle. Maybe I got a picture of the driver's license. Maybe I noted the color, the make, the model, some characteristics about the driver. I checked to find out, is everybody okay here? I turned on my flashers, made sure everything is good there. Maybe moved the vehicle out of the way. I documented, not physically gathered, but I documented the evidence. Maybe I took some photos of, the bumper's laying over here. I got this over here. Just to help the police out when they get there. You check for witnesses. Did anybody see anything? Or there happen to be any video cameras that may have caught some information either at the exact moment of the collision or leading right up to it. I sought medical attention, because I was feeling hurt, maybe immediately if it was bad enough, or maybe a week or two later even. Now I'm feeling achy, things just aren't working. Hey, I do need to go see a doctor. And then we've spoken to our insurance carriers about that. The next person they ought to talk to
is me. Yes, especially if you start having problems, medical issues from the collision, then you do need to talk to an attorney about that as well. So notify your insurance company, then contact an attorney, and go in and talk to an attorney about your the facts of your specific case. And that is, the way I work, and I've talked about this before, but I do offer free initial consultations. The initial consultation don't cost anything. Even if you don't hire me, you don't get charged for that initial consultation. If you do hire me, the fee's a contingency fee basis, so I'll only get paid at the end of the case whenever I only get paid at the end of the case whenever I'm successful in the case. That's when I get paid. It's a percentage of the recovery, so you're not out of pocket at all when you hire me. And we've talked about that in episode 56 about the benefits of contingent fee, how contingent fee works. So if you want to know more about that, you can go listen to that episode. Jim will put a link in the show notes for this episode so you can find that. From that standpoint. So but yes, you need to reach out to an attorney that's experienced in handling car wreck cases. From there, in my opinion, you've got general practitioners, you got doctors that limit their practice to certain areas, and you have attorneys that do the same thing. And you need to go to attorneys that are very familiar with the area that you're going to talk to them about. If you got a divorce, I'm not the attorney you want to call because I don't know anything about divorces. If you've got a motor vehicle accident, that's what I do. And come in to see me or go in to see an experienced attorney in dealing with motor vehicle collisions and talk with them about your situation, and then they can guide you. I can guide you on what's the best route to go. Whether you need an attorney, don't need an attorney at that point in time. You come in to talk to me, I'll shoot you straight in that regard, and then you can make the decision at that point after you're fully informed. Okay, I want to hire him. I don't want to hire him. That's your choice that you can make after you're fully informed. But make sure you're fully informed before you make that determination.
And there's absolutely no obligation, so better to get the answers that you need than not. Don't make assumptions.
Correct.
Deal with facts as best you can, anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, and so just do a little bit of research on the attorneys, and then go talk to one. Come talk to me, and I'll sit down, talk with you, give you that initial consultation, and then we'll see what you want to do at that point in time. But I'll give you the information you need to know.
Well, and I think one of the things, if you're wondering, wow, should I call Jeff or someone else? Jeff did say, call an attorney, but call him as well. If you go out and you look at Jeff's Google reviews, I think you're going to find just an enormous number of clients who have dealt with Jeff, and you'll get some of their honest feedback in those reviews as far as how they felt Jeff handled the case, how they felt Jeff communicated with them during the case, and a lot of other information there that I think that might actually give you some confidence that, yeah, I probably need to call the Roberts Law Office. And in fact, I'm going to talk to Jeff. Jeff, what is the phone number if they're interested in calling you? What number should they use?
The number to the office, 270-753-0053 or 1-800-844-5108. You can also reach out to me by, you can email me at jeff@jeffrobertslaw.com. From that standpoint, and talk to me that way as well. In talking about doing the research, and I firmly recommend that you do research on an attorney before you call and go in to see an attorney. In looking at Google reviews is a great way to learn how others feel about that attorney, and you can see what they have to say based on those Google reviews. One thing, I have offices in Murray and Hopkinsville, Kentucky. The Hopkinsville office was opened up last year. Google has separate listings for each office. So so if you look at the Hopkinsville office, you're only going to see a few reviews right now. So if you want to look and see what my clients have to say about me, go to the Murray page on Google, and you'll see, I think it's about 53 5-star reviews on there. Now, got 2 or 3 5-star reviews at Hopkinsville, but those will hopefully develop more over time from that standpoint. But that's a new office for me. It's only been open a few months, so it's going to take a little time before those reviews build up. So if you want to see what my past clients are saying, go to the Murray, Kentucky Roberts Law Office page, and it will have all those reviews for you.
That makes a lot of sense. Then can we get you to commit on tape that you'll treat your Hopkinsville clients just as well as you will the Murray clients?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So yeah, check out all the reviews at the Murray. Easiest way to do that is just, if you're on Google, just type in Roberts Law Office Murray, and that'll pop it up, and you'll see it right there on the right side of the screen. I'll also try to put a link in the show notes for you to make it very, very easy. So, Jeff, you've got 2 offices. You've got a number that allows them to talk generally specifically with the live person during normal business hours.
Exactly.
And so you're kind of set up to do this. You've been practicing this kind of law for almost 32 years now. So I think, when it comes to hit and run accidents, they're unfortunate and they're a little different than the normal accidents, but you kind of know what you're doing there.
I do. I've done it for almost 32 years, be 32 years in October. And so it's something I've done. Motor vehicle accidents is a type of case that I've handled from the time I started practicing until now. And unfortunately, several of those over that my lifetime of career has been hit and run type accidents, uninsured motorist type accidents, which are very similar. And so I've got a lot of experience handling those type of cases.
And, Kentucky's a little unique in the fact that we have 120 different counties. But because of the way the law operates and your license as an attorney operates, you can actually represent clients all across the state, right?
Correct. Yeah. Kentucky is a very large state from that standpoint as far as county-wise, but I'm licensed to practice in all courts in Kentucky, all state courts in Kentucky, and in the federal courts in the Western District of Kentucky from that standpoint. So I can handle your case regardless of where it occurs in Kentucky. I'm able to represent you in that case.
And if you happen to be listening to this out of state, let's say you're traveling through Kentucky, maybe you're heading down to Florida on vacation, or maybe you're coming through for business, and you got involved in a hit and run, and you go back home to wherever that was, you can still work with Jeff Roberts because the accident actually occurred inside of Kentucky, right? Is that, you want to explain a little bit about how that works?
Correct. If the accident occurs in Kentucky, then Kentucky's going to have jurisdiction over that case, not Tennessee. Even if you live in Tennessee, the accident's here. Kentucky's where the claim would be brought. Few exceptions to that rule, but that's the general rule from that standpoint. So if you are in Florida or North Dakota or wherever, if the accident's in Kentucky, you're going to need an attorney licensed in Kentucky to handle that case. And I'm licensed in Kentucky. I can handle that case for you from that standpoint. If you're a Kentucky resident and you're injured in another state, then that other state's going to be generally the one to handle that portion of the case or handle that case for you. And I can probably put you in touch with someone who's very good in that state, potentially work with them on that if you want a local attorney to talk with about to sit down and talk face to face with. And it's the same if you're in Florida or something and you contact me, but you want a local attorney, we can engage a local attorney. Doesn't increase the cost to you at all from that standpoint. If I associate with another attorney on a case that's out of Kentucky, that attorney and I split the fee based on the work each of us does. The same if you're out of state and you got a local attorney that associates with me on the Kentucky case, we do it the same way. If I do 90% of the work, I get 90% of the fee. If they do 50%, then we split it 50-50. We split the fee based on the work done on the case as a general rule.
That's outstanding. Well, Jeff, I appreciate your time. I know you've got a lot going on. I enjoy coming down to Calloway County to record these episodes with you. And I really appreciate the knowledge that you take time to share. A lot of times you see a television commercial, or maybe somebody has a website and a couple of blog posts, but you sit down on a monthly basis and record multiple episodes that really kind of go in depth and kind of unpack that, I think, in very easy to understand terms. And I think that's kind of what makes this a lot more approachable for your clients, because they understand, okay, this is how Jeff communicates, this is how Jeff's going to communicate with me, and maybe I feel a little bit more comfortable because of that. And again, I just want to thank you for taking the time to actually put the effort in to preparing for and delivering these episodes.
Well, I appreciate that. I try to share information that's going to be useful. Obviously we talk about my office, and normally at the end of the episode we talk about my office and what I do, but I try to make these at least where it's public, somewhat of a public service, not announcement, but public service information that people can use. Hopefully, if they have the situation they need to talk further, they will call me. But if they don't, they at least have some information to help make them a more informed choice for them.
Outstanding. Well, my friends, that's a wrap for this episode. I want to appreciate and thank you for your time for listening to the episode. If you've got some family and friends, like we said toward the outset of the episode, please share this episode with them so that they're well informed, and should they ever be involved in a hit and run accident, they'll have some information from Jeff Roberts, know how to contact him, and kind of know what to expect, and a few things to do at the scene should they need it. So once again, thanks very much. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, and thank you, listeners.
Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.